Well, when it comes from recovering from embedded porn use, the habit that this podcast is all about and how to break it, I found that many of the guys I work with fall into one of two camps. There's those that drift into what I call mission impossible thinking, and those that tend to jump to mission accomplished thinking. Sometimes actually the same person jumps back and forth between the two, from mission impossible to mission accomplished. Today on Finding Traction, we talk about the weaknesses with both of those mission ditches. Welcome aboard.
Ready?
When it comes to porn, are you stuck, spinning out, or slipping backwards in your life? If so, then welcome to the Finding Traction podcast, a show dedicated to those who are looking to gain recovery momentum away from porn and toward the life and relationships they have always hoped for. Now, here's your host, Vern Tomke.
Well, guys, once again, I do love to connect with people. It's February, actually, it's one day away from February 2024, and we've just opened up a couple new groups for guys that are meeting together. We're journeying away from porn towards a much, much better life. And if you're looking at getting in a group or perhaps getting some individual coaching from me, I'd love to hear from you. My email is pretty simple. It's bandofbrothers.care, care@gmail.com. And what I do, I basically set up kind of an initial free Zoom call and a chance to meet me and hear a little bit more about my story, to hear about your story. And then in that, talk about what are some steps forward that could be helpful for you. And so anyways, if you're interested in that, again, please reach out to me at bandofbrothers.care@gmail.com. So let's talk about these two ditches, the ditches of mission impossible and the ditch of mission accomplished. First of all, let's talk about mission impossible thinking. It's funny when we start this whole idea of I am going to now, and I'm going to work towards a life which is completely clear of porn, where porn has no part of it anymore. Just that idea sometimes seems almost impossible to conceive of. I mean, think about it. If you spent your whole life in this committed relationship with porn, and really that's what it is. It's like a human relationship. It's a committed relationship, an embedded relationship, a toxic relationship. It's hard to imagine or even almost conceive of life without it. I'd say even for myself, the first couple years on this journey, I just struggled to get my mind around the idea that porn would no longer be part of my life. It just seemed like almost a science fiction novel. Really? No, any part of my life? Right? So sometimes mission impossible thinking can be applied in that way. But there's another way that mission impossible thinking can enter into the picture. It's when we stumble and fall flat on our face, we have a relapse, and especially maybe we've been doing well, and then, like I say, we stumble, we fall, and the resulting despair can lead to mission impossible thinking. I will never get over this. See my stumble, my fall only proves that this will always be in my life. It's one thing to say, and you might have heard that recovery saying, recovery is a marathon, it's not a sprint. It's a great saying, but in the despair that follows a relapse, it's kind of like feeling you're at mile 2 of a 26.2 marathon run and your body's shutting down. It's like, well, it might be a marathon, but I'm at mile 2 and it just seems impossible that I'm going to finish a complete marathon. So what do we do in the face of that? It's a very real challenge, a very real problem, because mission impossible thinking, it causes us to have despair. Despair causes us, discouragement, despair, whatever you want to call it, it causes us to want to give up. I can't do this. This is too hard. So I guess, for me, what was helpful for me in that way, and I can only tell you what worked for me. And sure, I did my best to practice all sorts of self-talk. I had personal disciplines. I had tools that I used. But even in the face of that, I found myself losing hope after a bad day or a bad week. And I can only speak for myself. I couldn't have done it without the shared hope that a group of guys provided. And I've even said to people, guys in my group who've come in, who've had a really tough week, I've said, you know what? I know you're really down right now, but as a group, or even me personally, I can hold hope for you, even when you don't feel it, that real change is possible. I had a guy recently, and he was sharing, he had a really tough week. And I asked the group, I said, what is the thing that you would want to hear if you had a really difficult week? And we just spent time sharing encouragement with one another. It's why I tell people, don't leave the battle. Don't stop fighting. If drowning comes from falling into the water, don't let yourself just sink to the bottom. Keep treading water until a lifeline comes. And again, speaking for myself, when it comes to that struggle with mission impossible thinking, all I would say is that great phrase, we can do what I can. I know that was huge and remains huge for me in my journey. Well, there's another ditch that I see people falling into when it comes to recovery, and I want to call this the ditch of mission accomplished. Now, in order to kind of explain this one, I'm going to give you an historical example. Probably if you're an American, or I guess you'd have to be a bit older, you would remember this. But so let me just set the stage here. On May 1st, 2003, U.S. President George W. Bush gave a televised speech on the aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln. Now, Bush had just launched the U.S.-led invasion of Iraq 6 weeks earlier, and he mounted a podium on the aircraft carrier, and there was a big banner behind him that said, "Mission accomplished." Reading from a prepared text, he said, "Major combat operations in Iraq have ended. In the Battle of Iraq, the United States and our allies have prevailed because the regime, the Iraqi dictator of Saddam Hussein, is no more. Mission accomplished." Now, he did say we still have difficult work to do, but what was lost was this whole sense, mission accomplished. Now, his assertions that mission have accomplished and the big banner behind him, why it became so controversial, because it was after that the Iraqi insurgency gained pace, and eventually what happened is a full-on sectarian war ended up happening in Iraq. The vast majority of casualties, both U.S. and Iraqi, military and civilian, they occurred after the speech. In fact, the U.S. troops ended up fighting in Iraq for 8 more years. So now when it's actually become a bit of a phrase in cultural relevance, when someone uses the phrase mission accomplished, it's now frequently used to refer to the perils, listen carefully, it's used to refer to the perils of declaring victory too early in the crisis. Mission accomplished. And in working with guys, I've seen this tendency cropping up as well with guys. And even though guys may have struggled with embedded porn use for years and years, perhaps they start recovery, or they get into a group, or they do some individual counseling, and they begin to experience changes. And even early success. So for these guys, it feels like porn has receded into the background. At least it doesn't seem to be banging on the front door anymore. And I've had people tell me, Vern, I think this is it. I think this time I've got it figured out. I can almost hear George W. in the background going, mission accomplished. I don't do accents, so I won't even try to do a Southern accent. Now, let me just say, I am all for seeing results. And I think it's actually can be a great motivator to see early results. And it tells us we are on the right track. But mission accomplished? My advice to guys is this. I say to them, it's great to see that you're getting the engine turned off on your immediate porn use. But here's the reality. Over years and years in your life, you learn to turn to porn when certain conditions were present in your life. We need to learn to understand those conditions. We need to retrain your brain, your habits, and your actions to meet those needs and respond to those conditions in healthy ways and not the old ways. I'd say it because sure as snot, you know, and I can guarantee to you that those conditions will once again be present in your life. And without support and retraining, your autopilot will probably kick right back into place. I did this recently with a guy, one of the guys that I individually coach, and we were talking about this concept of mission accomplished and how, and this idea that when those factors reemerge in his life, probably he's going to be back into a season of testing. And we sat down and we talked about what are those conditions or factors that usually precede your acting out. AA recovery often talks about hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. So that would be an example of that. Other ones, so that would be one. Number two, so it could be the halt thing. Number two was boredom. Whenever he was bored, that was another one. Or three, whenever he was in a season of stress. And stress could often be associated with perhaps waking up at night and loss of sleep. That was another one of those factors, those preconditions. It's like the runway upon which the airplane of our porn use can land. Another one we talked about, whenever he was in a rich target environment, could be like at the beach or when he was in a workout class, the airport, something like that, like a rich target environment. A couple more. Whenever he faced novel opportunities. And this was interesting because you might have been in a situation, and I have, when all of a sudden you realize, oh my goodness, this program or this technology, there is a whole way that I can access erotic or arousing material that I hadn't thought of. And it's like a novel opportunity, and that was especially difficult. And lastly, it was just travel, because when there was traveling, then there was unstructured time and large swaths of time, like let's say waiting for a flight, or just with the change of routine and structure that traveling or vacations brought about. All of that was to say, are any of those conditions going to happen again? The answer is, of course they are. And your brain will remember, oh, this is how I deal with those challenges. Now, I love the fact that guys get excited and encouraged about their recovery. But I also want guys to be prepared and understand when opportune time and opportune times will come again, when I will once again face a season of testing. For those of you Bible readers, this is a story from the New Testament, of course. You'll know the story of how Jesus went through a time of testing and, by Satan. And then it says, after tempting Jesus, Satan left for a more opportune time. Well, I guess we could say none of us is quite Jesus. If even Jesus had his opportune times of testing, then you too will have opportune times where you're weak or you're susceptible or you're likely to switch back to some of those old habits. So I say to guys, I'm glad you're encouraged, but rather than declaring mission accomplished, let's ask yourself, okay, what are those factors why I've learned to rely and use porn? And how do I learn to deal with these situations in better ways to engage in growing up behaviors rather than escaping behaviors? And the more that I learn to do that and I grow out of those ways of dealing with these things, I will become much better positioned to have success in my life and success in my recovery. So, mission impossible thinking, mission accomplished thinking. Both of them can be to the detriment of us going and growing in our recovery. And I would say with both of those, once again, even with mission accomplished thinking, I think a group can be really helpful, because sometimes I'm in a group and I hear a guy who had a bad week and maybe he's describing a fall or a struggle, and I'm going, you know what? That could be me. I'm not nearly as far as I think I am. Or it can simply that we can lend hope to one another when we're struggling with mission impossible. Maybe hearing each other's stories brings us back down to earth when we're tempted to hang up the big banner behind us and go, mission accomplished. So, anyway, some food for thought. I hope you have a great week. I'd love to hear from you. Once again, my email is bandofbrothers.care@gmail.com. We'll see you next time.